Hey, what's up guys? I wanted this video for a specific person who had requested it, although it's a pretty good video for anyone, I suppose. And you know what? I'm not sure if I did this video before. I really don't remember. But it's about converting an assisted knife into a manual knife. Now, that being said, there's plenty of different companies that are making assisted knives and plenty of different mechanisms, okay, that actually make them assisted. Specifically, we're going to be talking about a Ken Onion chive. This is the carbon fiber chive, which is uber sexy. Look at that thing. Nice. And I'm just going to be removing the torsion bar because someone contacted me, said they have a chive, but they can't have assisted knives where they are. So it's a legal issue and they wanted to trade it. And originally the message was just a trade offer for me, but unfortunately I'm not interested in it. When these knives first came out, I was heavily collecting all of the Ken Onion models. I had, between the Ken Onion chives, the scallions, and the leeks, when they first came out, I had 30 plus knives, okay? I think around 33 or 34, and I had every version of every knife. I had the titanium, or not titanium, because I never had one. I had the tie-nye coating, you know, the rainbow version. I had the smoke models. I had the black ones. I had the plain silver ones. I mean, every single version that came out, I got it. Of course, now they have tons and tons more that I've never even seen. But I'm all chived out. You know, I'm all onioned out. So Ken Onion makes some awesome knives, but I just kind of been there, done that. But anyway, I wanted to show him, instead of trading, that he can still enjoy his lovely knife. And just make it legal if he wishes, okay? So it is assisted, as you can see here, without putting much pressure. Even if I just use, you know, open my pinky. A little pressure on the pinky, pops right out, okay? That's because there's a torsion bar in here. And I'm going to show you how to take the knife part briefly and take that out so you make it manual. I'm going to use a paper towel, okay, because I have this placemat here that's going to easily lose some screws. So let's drop this down. All right, the bit you're going to need for the Kershaw Chive is a T6, all right, or Torx 6. So you want to do this open so you don't have that pressure built up. And we want to remove our screws. Okay, pivot screw. Don't lose your hardware. Can very easily be done. I don't have one, but I'd love to get one of those little magnetic trays. You can get them at Home Depot for like $8. Be perfect for this stuff. Taking your knives apart. It's basically a little bowl and it's magnetized. So you throw all your hardware in there and you don't lose it. Awesome concept. And they have it by the tool section. That will be a knife investment for the future. So anyway, just be careful with this. Like I said, you don't want to lose your hardware. Alright, so as we take this knife apart, we'll see a couple things in here. First of all, our spacer. This one's heavily oiled. Our spacer and our hardware, which we can leave on there, that's fine for now. Now you see right in here, see that little thing sticking up? That is our torsion bar. And actually, you know what? I do have to remove the hardware because I have to get the scale off. D. So let's do that right now. If this thing doesn't freely spin so much, I'll have an easier time doing it. Alright, so there's our spacer. Knock our screws out. And the whole thing just fell off. But basically we have this plate here, which now we no longer need. You can put that aside, or you can put it back in your knife if you want. And here is the torsion bar, okay, which was sticking out the back here and then sticking out the front, which went into this hole right here on the blade. It works very much like a coil spring, okay. On an automatic knife, a coil spring wraps around the pivot, and basically there's constant pressure on it. When it's closed, it's in a locked position, and then when you push the button, you're basically lifting up the piece of metal that's blocking the blade from opening, and it shoots open. But being a torsion bar or an assisted knife, obviously you don't have a button that's blocking it, but once you reach a certain part, the pressure is relieved. Okay, so to get that pressure back, you have to slowly open it again. But anyway, that's your torsion bar. Okay, the torsion bar looks the same in all of the assisted Canonian knives. So this is the same for the scallion or the leek. This just happens to be the chive. All right, remember before when I said we don't need that plate? Well, I lied. I fibbed to you. We do need the plate because it covers the channels and gives us a nice smooth surface on the inside. And I just put the knife back together, and although it works, it's definitely not as smooth, and there's too much friction. Then you got to play with the pivot screw. It just doesn't work, okay? So once you remove your torsion bar from underneath that, put it back in, you'll see how it only goes in one way here and fits perfectly in those channels, okay? So yeah, don't forget to do that. My other tip to you is, because I also put this in backwards, the spacer, the pointy part, goes towards the blade pivot, okay? So 2 little tips from me to you to save you a little bit of aggravation. With these little screws on your tiny knives, you do not want to take them apart, you know, screw them down, unscrew them, screw them down, unscrew them. Especially if you start putting Loctite on these, you're gonna have too many problems and issues, and they're gonna strip. And these screws are too small to just go down to the hardware store and pick up spares. You're gonna have to call Kershaw, and it's just a hassle to say the least. So, yes, the plate has to go back in. So, my bad on that one. All right, I will go back later and unscrew these one last time to Loctite the pivot, because I'm gonna put the torsion bar back in. But anyway, body screws are down nice and tight. And our pivot screw we're gonna have to play with again to get the right tension, because if it is too loose, it's gonna give us blade play, and if it's too tight, it's not gonna be smooth opening. Another thing too is you wanna be careful with these little screws. If something doesn't line up right away, wiggle some stuff around. All right, do not force these, because if you do, or if you're not lined up right and you cross thread these screws, they're gonna be garbage. They're gonna strip out and they're gonna ruin the threads, and it's just not gonna be good. All right, so just be careful of that. Okay. So, give this a try. Smooth. Now here's the problem with this. Because this is no longer assisted, pushing that, the tang, you know, or the flipper, if you will, on this particular knife, because of its size, because that it's still a little bit tighter, it's not super tight, you're not going to be able to flick this out, even with a good wrist flick, all right? It's going to be very hard to, I guess off camera here, I can kind of really try to whip it out. No, even then, it's not really coming out all the way. Let me loosen that a tiny bit more. See if that helps any. I just don't want any blade play from it. That takes way too much effort. So you're not going to flip this thing out anymore. That's your problem. All right. The second thing here is, you see these things right here? The thumb studs? Well, they're not. They're not thumb studs. These are your blade stops. Okay. Now I made the wrong observation years and years ago with these knives. Okay. Particularly this specific knife and the leeks. And I always thought this was your flipper, and if that failed, you always have these thumb studs as a backup. Well, they're not meant to be thumb studs, okay? They are small, they're not super comfortable to use. They will work as thumb studs, but their main purpose is a blade stop, okay? See, there's a tiny little indent shape on the top of these handles. That rests up against there when it's locked in, okay? It's to prevent over travel. If you did not have these in there, the blade would just keep on rolling back and it would not work properly. All right, so it appears to be thumb studs, all right? And you might think they're thumb studs, but they're not meant for that. They're blade stops, okay? However, now that we removed the torsion bar in here and we don't have the spring assisted anymore, and we don't want to necessarily use 2 hands every time we open this knife, we can, in fact, use them as thumb studs. They're not as efficient, but guess what? Now we have a fully manual knife. So if where you live, assisted knives are not legal to carry or to use, you could say now we have a fully functional, awesome little Foley knife that's not assisted. Okay, so this video is for just people who love their little assisted knives, but maybe they can't carry them. You know, a lot of these are given as gifts sometimes, and people just, they fall in love with them. But if you can't carry them, this gives you an option to now carry them legally. Or if perhaps you do like the knife, but you don't like the assisted opening, which some people don't. I honestly am not a huge fan of assisted knives. Give me any good folder. I can adjust it or practice with it, and I can flick it out, you know, just as fast, if not faster, except for this one. That was a failed attempt. All right, just as fast as assisted, okay? So before, when it was assisted, it came out pretty fast, right? But if you can't carry that, you can take the torsion bar out, practice just a little bit. Oh, it's hard with small knives too. And there you go. I might even argue that's faster than the assisted. So I can't show you right now because the bar's out of here, but imagine what it was before. It only takes a split second either way, but with this one, because it's so small, what I'm doing, instead of pushing out, it's not going to give me enough momentum, you know, doing it that way. I'm pushing straight up, all right, and building pressure on this, okay, so that once I move out, it'll have a lot of built-up pressure that's released all at once that will flick it out, okay? So if you just go on an angle like this, it's not going to go out all the way. That's what's going to happen every time. So instead of going out, push forward and then out, all right? So forward and out. When you go forward, nothing's going to happen, but you're building up that pressure. So forward and out. And if you do that properly, that's what's going to happen. So now it's manual and even faster. It's just going to take your technique and your practice to get that flipped out like that. Absolutely cool. Now, here's another little thing. This right here, the safety on these. Now remember before, this was speed assist. So they have this little nib here, and I'm sure you guys have seen this before, but if you haven't, little plastic nib, and basically it slides on this screw, and this blocks your blade. This is basically what locks this closed. Because it's assisted and this protrudes out the back, if you were to put this in your pocket, there's a fear that if you hit this on accident, it would open up in your pocket. So they created this little thing. Now that this is a manual knife, and I took the speed assist out, I can remove this completely, because I don't need to lock this in the closed position. So same deal, it's still a T6 for this screw. All right, and let me give you a quick little hint here. If you're, it's not that it's illegal or anything, this is just an observation. This is hearsay and for entertainment purposes only. But if you're shipping assisted knives out of the country or in the country, a lot of times by law, a knife that's automatic is something you can flick out real quick, whatever, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll tighten down the pivot screw on the knife so that when the customs guys play with it, they can't flick them open, and then it gives you a better chance of actually receiving your knife from a different country. This is something, if you happen to have these models, you can just tighten that down in the lock position all the way. And guaranteed when the customs guy with his big old mustache, because that's how I picture them. It may not be what they look like, but I totally picture like, you know, Saddam Hussein at the borders going through my stuff. But anyway, they're going to go to flick it out, and they're going to go, oh, this is broken, this piece of crap, and they'll end up letting you keep your own stuff. But if you don't do that and it flicks it out really cool, then they're going to want to keep it, and that's how I think that works. Can't prove it, but I'm fairly sure it's a free-for-all. Anyway, there you go. So remove that screw, and this piece will pop right out. Push that through. Let's get that out of the way, because that is not helping. And there's a little washer. Teeny tiny, ugh. Dropping my bit again. What I say, it's my favorite bit. Alright, come on. It's in the track still. I should have done this when the knife was apart. I made a boo-boo. Anyway, yeah, when the knife is still apart, you can do that. You can remove it. But now that the knife's put back together, I can't open this. Jesus. I suppose I could just loosen the screw and do this and do that. It's supposed to be like an instructional video, and it looks like I don't know what I'm doing. It's not very helpful. Alright, so wiggle that apart just a little bit. And pop it out. Now crammed in. There we go. Get out of my knife. Okay, now finally done with this thing. I suppose I can do the whole thing over, but it's just not as realistic. This is just what it is. You know, you gotta make mistakes. You gotta goof up a little bit. It's really no problem at all. All right, so our knife is now totally manual, just as fast, looking sexy. That carbon fiber on that chive. I'm digging it. It's awesome. Jiving with my chive. And now we have removed our safety. That's all. By the way, let's see, this one was made in February 2003. Wow, it's getting old. So that's all. I'm not going to keep these parts because now this is my official dedicated manual chive. But there you go. And the coolest part about this is that this is not permanent. You can take this out or put it back in whenever you want. All right. You don't lose any value in the knife, nothing like that. All right. If you change your mind and say, hey man, this stinks now. I used to like it when it was kind of cool, flippy open kind of a deal. I like the assisted knife. I like my assisted version of this knife. This sucks. That's fine. Put this thing back in. That's all. So there you go, guys. I appreciate you hanging in there through the whole video, even though I goofed up here and there. I will probably edit it just a little bit. And that's all. So hopefully this was somewhat educational, possibly entertaining. Either way, I thank you for your time once again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.